Assalamualaikum and hi everyone, I am Fatin. Our group would like to make a brief presentation on our progress report. Our group was chosen to compute by Parkson Holding Berhad and Padini Holding Berhad as calculated and performed for financial ratio analysis by our company. We gather data from Bursa Malaysia's main market for publicly traded companies second board. The annual report covers 4 fiscal years from 2018 to 2020. The method for analyzing financial data is to calculate all the ratio from the financial statements data and to perform a 3-year trend analysis using horizontal and vertical analysis. So we move to the next point.
Financial ratios are an analysis tool which are used to highlight the weakness and strengths. There are 5 categories, namely liquidity ratios, activity ratios, leverage ratios, profitability ratios, and market ratios. First, current ratio. Current ratio is calculated by current assets divided by current liabilities. Padini Holdings Berhad records 4.01 times, 3.92 times, 2.93 times in year 2020, 2019, and 2018 respectively. Parkson Holdings Berhad records 0.88 times, 1.32 times, 1.18 times in year 2020, 2019, and 2018 respectively. Second, quick ratio. Quick ratio is calculated by current assets minus inventory divided by current liabilities. Padini Holdings Berhad records 2.58 times in 2020 and 2019 while 1.94 times in 2018. Parkson Holdings Berhad records 0.74 times, 1.15 times, 1.04 times in year 2020, 2019 and 2018 respectively. Third, net working capital. Net working capital is calculated by current assets minus current liabilities. Padini Holdings Berhad records 575,398 ringgit, 602,398 ringgit, 503,983 ringgit in year 2020, 2019 and 2018 respectively. Parkson Holdings Berhad records negative 332,701 ringgit, 700,910 ringgit, 472,985 ringgit in year 2020, 2019 and 2018 respectively. Fourthly, inventory turnover. Inventory turnover is calculated by COGS or sales divided by inventory. Padini Holdings Berhad records 2.98 times, 3.91 times, 3.86 times in year 2020, 2019 and 2018 respectively. Parkson Holdings Berhad records 9.02 times, 11 times, 10.54 times in year 2020, 2019 and 2018 respectively.
As its average collection period, the formula for average collection period is 365 over account receivable turnover. For Padini Holdings Berhad, the average collection period of Padini Holdings in 2018 is 9.86 and increased to 10.60 in 2020. While for Parkson Holdings Berhad, the average collection period in 2018 is 50.14 and decreased to 46.06 in 2020. Its account receivable turnover. The formula for account receivable turnover is sales over account receivable. For the company Padini Holdings Berhad, the account receivable turnover is 37.11 times and decreased to 34.14 times in 2020. For the Parkson Holdings Berhad, the account receivable turnover of Parkson was 7.28 times and increased to 7.92 times in 2020. Next is fixed assets turnover. The formula for fixed asset turnover is sales over fixed assets. For the company Padini Holdings Berhad, the fixed asset number of Padini was increased from 10.56 in 2018 and decreased to 2.15 in 2020. For the Parkson Holdings Berhad, the fixed asset turnover was 0.68 in 2018 and decreased to 0.40 2020.
Okay, next we will proceed to the total asset turnover. From the table shows both company increased in 2018 to 2019 and decreased in 2020 at the interpretation of horizontal. While interpretation of vertical, total asset turnover of Padini Holdings Berhad is greater than Parkson Holdings Berhad. This shows Padini Holdings Berhad efficiently using its assets to generate sales. Next is debt ratio. Debt ratio of Padini Holdings Berhad unchanged in 2018 to 2019, then increased in 2020, while Parkson Holdings Berhad increased rapidly in 2018 to 2020 at the interpretation of horizontal. At the interpretation of vertical, debt ratio of Padini Holdings Berhad is less than Parkson Holdings Berhad. This shows that Parkson Holdings Berhad has the higher amount of debt to finance assets, in 2018 and 2020. Next, debt to equity. Debt to equity of Padini Holdings Berhad unchanged in 2018 to 2019, then increased in 2020, while Parkson Holdings Berhad grows in 2018 to 2019, then declined in 2020 at the interpretation of horizontal. At the interpretation of vertical, debt to equity of Padini Holdings Berhad is better than Parkson Holdings Berhad. It is because the amount of debt to equity of Padini Holdings Berhad is smallest.
Next is time interest earned. For the interpretation horizontal of Padini Holdings Berhad, the time interest earned growth in 2018 to 2019 from 96.41 times to 133 times, while it dropped in 2020 to 5 times. While Parkson Holdings Berhad, the time interest earned growth in 2018 to 2019 from 0.36 times to 0.84 times, while it dropped in 2020 to 0.40 times. For the interpretation of vertical, in 2020, time interest earned of Padini Holdings Berhad is 4 times, which is greater than Parkson Holdings Berhad with 0.14 times. In 2019, Padini Holdings Berhad is 133 times, which is greater than Parkson Holdings Berhad with 0.84 times. And in 2018, Padini Holdings Berhad is 96.41 times, which is greater than Parkson Holdings Berhad with 0.36 times. Then is profitability ratio. For the interpretation horizontal of Padini Holdings Berhad, the gross profit margin in 2018 is 41%, and it is reduced to 39% in 2019 and increased to 40% in 2020. While Parkson Holdings Berhad, the gross profit margin in 2018 is 202%, rising to 469% in 2019 and fall to 44% in 2020. For the interpretation of vertical, in 2020, the gross profit margin of Parkson Holdings Berhad is 44%, greater than Padini Holdings Berhad with 40%. In 2019, Parkson Holdings Berhad is 469%, greater than Padini Holdings Berhad with 39%. And in 2018, Parkson Holdings Berhad is 202%, greater than Padini Holdings Berhad with 41%. Further is operating profit margin. For the interpretation horizontal of Padini Holdings Berhad, the operating profit margin reduced from 2018 to 2020, where operating profit margin in 2018 is 40%, 2019 is 12%, and 2020 is 10%. While Parkson Holdings Berhad, the operating profit margin rose and fell from 2018 to 2020.
Okay, hello everyone. So my part about a discussion. Have a 14 ratio, but I just explained 5 ratio. Okay, first ratio is a quick ratio. Okay, you guys can see table in slide. Okay, for a quick ratio, Padini Holdings Berhad has the highest quick ratio in the year 2018, 2019 and 2020, which reflect the ability to pay its short-term obligation without relay on inventory. Okay, second is a current ratio. Okay, for a current ratio, have a Padini Holdings Berhad and Parkson Holdings Berhad. Okay, for a current ratio, Padini Holdings Berhad has the highest current ratio in the year 2018, 2019 and 2020, which reflect the ability to pay its short-term obligation on time. Okay, third is a net working capital. Okay, Padini Holdings Berhad has the highest net working capital in year 2018 and 2020, whereas Parkson Holdings Berhad has the highest net working capital in year 2020, which indicate absolute measure in liquidity. Next is inventory turnover. Okay, you guys can see Padini Holdings Berhad and Parkson Holdings Berhad, but Parkson Holdings Berhad has the highest inventory turnover in the year 2018, 2019 and 2020, which reflect the effectiveness of inventory to generate of sale. Lastly is a total asset turnover. Padini Holdings Berhad has the highest total asset turnover in year 2018, 2019 and 2020, which indicate the effectiveness of total asset to generate its sales. That's all for me. Thank you.
The first recommendation is the company have a clear business plan. The business plan is very important because it will show the progress of the company production. They must calculate how long it will take to finish the preparation. From this, they can know the progress of the plan can be achieved or not. The recommendation number 2 is seize opportunities during time of crisis or to deal with difficulties as they emerge. Financial troubles in a business are always stressful, but there is aid and advice available to help you deal with them before they become too much to bear. So get professional advice as soon as possible. You can also take some preliminary efforts to reduce the impact, such as addressing key debts first and examining how you might improve your cash flow management. Number 3 is get the honest and trustworthy financial advisor. It is because many financial advisors do not have high skills in the field. Hence, the both company already has a financial advisor who is already experienced in a financial management. From this, the financial management for both company always in stable and steady. And lastly is keep up-to-date accounting records is one of the recommendation to improve financial management and profit. They could lose money if the account is not up to date because they cannot keep track of late customer payments or do not realize when they have to pay the suppliers. However, they can keep a trace of expenses, debts and creditors, requests for more funding, and save time and money by using a competent record keeping system.
So from the report, we can conclude all that good financial management will assist your company in making efficient use of resources, meeting stakeholders' commitment, gaining a competitive advantage, and preparing for a long-term financial stability. Hence, the both company already has a financial advisor who is already experienced in financial management. From this, the financial management for both company always is stable and static. That's all from our company. Thank you.